Well, an Al Jazeera investigation has revealed the extent of military support the United Kingdom and United States have given Israel in the past year. They created an air bridge that was vital for Israel to sustain the intensity of its war on Gaza. Our defense editor Alex Gatopoulos breaks it down.
The evidence unearthed by Al Jazeera uses open-source flight data to show the scale of American and British involvement in Israel's war on Gaza and now Lebanon. The data shows more than 6,000 military flights in a year, including hundreds of transport missions ferrying arms to Israel. Israel flew only 20% of the 1,600 reconnaissance flights recorded, whereas the UK accounted for nearly half, using its Shadow R1 surveillance aircraft, which provided intelligence on ground movements in Gaza. The UK sent Israel targeting data en masse during 645 flights. The report reveals the extent of the weapons air bridge built for Israel. More than 1,200 military cargo flights made up the airlift over a year. Several bases in Europe were used with hundreds of flights from each, from the UK, Germany, Italy, Cyprus and Greece. It is this air bridge, together with a vast number of surveillance flights and air-to-air refueling, that has sustained Israel's brutal war on Gaza and helped it expand its operations into southern Lebanon.
Okay, and now we'll speak to Francis Ricciardone, who's a former U.S. ambassador to Egypt and Turkey, joining us from Washington, D.C. Sir, thanks for your time. So just to add on to what our defense editor was saying, I do have some other statistics in terms of the military aid that the U.S. has given to Israel. And according to a recent report by the Cost of War Project, Washington has sent Israel nearly $18 billion in weapons and other assistance over the past year. I mean, doesn't this surprise the U.S. taxpayer who are footing the bill at a time when Washington is dealing sort of with its own economic issues and struggling to tame inflation?
I doubt the U.S. taxpayer is closely tracking this kind of story or detail. The broad public awareness about the wars that Israel is fighting in the United States perceive it as supporting Israel's defense. What is changing in American public opinion is there's now more questioning of that, and there isn't as much acceptance that all that military assistance going to Israel is for its defense. Many are now reacting to exactly the story you're showing, that this is being used for very offensive purposes at the very time when the U.S. government is calling for a ceasefire.
Do you think you say that there's somewhat of a shift and awareness among the public, but is it strong enough to sort of force a change of U.S. policy or not yet?
Certainly not now. Not in the next 2 weeks before the election. I question whether it would force a shift in the next 3 months before a change of administration, regardless who wins on November 5th.
And the Secretary of State, Blinken, of course, as you know, has been in the region. It's his 11th trip since the war on Gaza began last October. I mean, you're a diplomat. From what you've seen, is the U.S. at this point willing to use its leverage on Israel to rein it in? I mean, when will the U.S. say enough is enough, considering the genocide taking place in Gaza, the extermination campaign in the north of the Gaza Strip, and now, the war in Lebanon?
Well, there's no sign that the current administration is threatening withholding of military support from Israel. There was a letter that came out a week or so ago with a 30-day warning to begin seriously increasing humanitarian aid, but even that is quite modest compared to the point you are making. I don't see that changing in the next 2 weeks before the election, in the next 3 months before a change of administration, and depending on the outcome of the administration, it might not change for the term of the next administration.
How big a gamble has all this been for the Democrats? I mean, not only are they funding and supporting the wars, as we've been discussing, but also you have this THAAD defense missile battery system that's now in Israel to protect Israel from any Iranian retaliatory attack. And you effectively have U.S. boots on the ground. Isn't this a big gamble for the Democrats 2 weeks ahead of an election?
Evidently, the administration doesn't perceive it as that. This is clearly that the THAADs are clearly an air defense mechanism, and so that can be put into the category of supporting Israel's defense against the what it's already experienced in terms of missile attacks from Iran or from northern Lebanon. So I doubt that they see that as a very risky step. The bigger risk is, of course, the ongoing carnage and war, even after Israel would seem to have accomplished at least some of its objectives, at least symbolically, with the killing of various leaders of whether of Hamas or of Hezbollah. That is the more risky thing, I think.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us on Al Jazeera.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.